As we listen to the presidential Democratic candidates talk about all the issues, China trade's going to come up. And besides, we hear it on the news all the time. Trade war, tariffs. So what's the story? The short version of it is, we really do need a new China trade policy. The current policy has been a fail for working people and consumers. We've seen a ginormous trade deficit in the last 20 years since in 2000. We tried a new policy where we basically gave open market access to China, and we've seen a flood of unsafe products. And even the supporters of our trade status quo admit that China's shock that resulted wiped out 2 to 3 million US jobs, and parts of the country have never recovered since. So, what is the policy we need, and is Trump getting us there? Unfortunately, probably not. So, what Trump is doing is using one tool, tariffs. Can be a legitimate tool, but it's just one of the tools. And so far, the tariffs haven't really raised consumer prices because they've been very targeted in what's called intermediate products, the things that go into things. But if we keep adding more and more tariffs, that could start to actually hit our pocketbooks. And anyway, it doesn't maximize our leverage just to use one tool. And then what should we be asking for with our leverage? Well, Trump's basically asking for things that make it easier for companies to outsource jobs to China, to have their intellectual property protected in China, or to be able to invest in China. What do we need? So number one, we need to have the right demands. Some of those, number one, immediate ban on products made by the million Uyghur, Muslim, political prisoners, now in concentration-like camps, who make sporting goods and sporting wear that's being sold here. Any of those political prisoner work camp products, just ixnay, need to be stopped, flat. There's a lot of that. So that would create leverage already on the government realizing these practices have to stop. Number two, some basic labor rights as a condition for access to our market. We set up those terms in other trade policies. Why is there an exception for China? People in China have no rights to have an independent union. They're being paid $2 an hour. They're making high-tech, amazing products for U.S. companies that are going to be sold here. Right now, Chinese workers don't have any rights for themselves, but the government has a real interest in selling things here. We can use that leverage to improve their conditions. Number three, we need to improve the safety of the products. We have all heard the horror stories about the different products that are coming out of China that aren't safe, that aren't inspected. Incredibly important issue. Number four, we need to crack down on the things that are national security problems and downright cheating. So there's some products that just flat out need to be banned. And number five, we need to deal with the currency cheating issue. China's sitting on a ton of US dollars, and so what it ends up doing, it bids up the price of the dollar, which means all of our exports are more expensive in the world market, and then China devalues its own currency to give itself a subsidy on dumping exports here. If those were the changes we wanted, how do we get them? Well, unfortunately, the Trump administration, so Wall Street rigged, they're not using half the leverage we have. The things we ought to be doing besides some selected use of tariffs, one, we should delist these Chinese companies that are the government or the military or the company all glommed together as the elite. These government-owned, government-controlled companies should not be raising money on our stock markets. We shouldn't be investing in their bad behavior or their raising economic or military threats for us. Number two, we need to either figure out how to lower the currency value of the dollar or counter the devaluation actions to bring up the value of the Chinese currency. Number three, we simply must immediately start to have policies where we simply don't trade in certain products that are sensitive militarily. These are the kind of things that actually could make a difference for working people, for the future of our country's economic and national security strength, and using the full leverage, not just helping Wall Street make money out of China, is key. The final thing to watch for is if Trump caves in and just makes a really quick deal where China agrees in the short term to buy a little bit more soy, a little bit more gas, and Trump pretends like all these really big problems that are out there that he's got to get fixed, but he's not asking to get fixed, can just be ignored. You got to watch for that because he could do that too.